of Americans. This happened during a Democrat administration, and it's when we first began hearing the word affordability. Our border was open, and because of this, our country was being invaded by an army of 25 million people, many who came from prisons and jails, mental institutions, and insane asylums. They were drug dealers, gang members, and even 11,888 murderers, more than 50% of whom killed more than one person. This is what the Biden administration allowed to happen to our country, and it can never be allowed to happen again. We had men playing in women's sports, transgender for everybody, crime at record levels with law enforcement, and words such as that just absolutely forbidden. We had the worst trade deals ever made, and our country was laughed at from all over the world. But they're not laughing anymore.
There is Donald Trump in his speech last night to the nation. It is, as I predicted, basically a political rah-rah speech and a look and check off of everything he's accomplished. But the left is still nay, nay, nay. He didn't do anything. He put us in deeper trouble. They lie. They absolutely lie. I don't know how accurate Trump is on some of the numbers he spread out last night. But I would tell you this. The Jen Psaki's of the world are quick to pounce on anything they can find, but they ignore the big picture. The big picture is we are better off. We are better off under Trump than we were Biden. And how the legacy media is treating it, as they were saying, the networks breaking precedent. The networks were all interrupting prime time for, as they call it, the Trump political diatribe. And they also interrupted on CBS the Survivor finale for the Trump speech. Now, that did tick off a lot of people. I will say he lost some support maybe there because the folks wanted to watch Survivor instead of what the president's doing to help you and our nation survive. And so it goes. We'll get into that as we move forward. Hour number one, Larry Connors, USA, December 18, 2025. Glad to have you on board. And reminding you, when we're on the air, we are streaming video. You can watch the program. How do you do that? You go to NewsTalkSTL, Rumble, Facebook, or Twitter. Larry Connors, USA, Rumble, or Facebook. And everything goes up as a podcast later at NewsTalkSTL, LarryConnorsUSA.com, Larry Connors, USA, Facebook. Am I going too fast for you? Because a lot of the leftists were saying Trump was manic in his speech last night. He was 2-3 times speed. Something's wrong with him. Because he can put sentences together in a rapid fashion. There's something wrong with him? How does that compare to Biden? Give me America. All right, enough of picking on Biden. Next hour, a columnist, Konstantin Kisin, maybe some of you know him. He is British-Russian descent, and he identifies as 25% Jewish, and he says the Islam-Muslim issue we are treating wrong in this nation. He has a comparison of green apples to red. How does that link up? I'm going to tell you that I'm in his target as to what he says we're doing wrong, but I don't think I'm budging, and I will see if you agree with me or him as we move forward. Later in this hour, John Daniel Davidson, the Federalist senior editor. He writes, Vivek Ramaswamy is wrong about Americans' identity and America. In what way? John will join us later. Also, our story behind the story tonight, Gillies, the Pasadena nightclub where they shot the Urban Cowboy, and John Travolta became a star overnight on that movie. I'll have the story behind the story of Gillies in Pasadena. Now, as I told you, the left is crying out that everything Trump was saying last night, there are a lot of questions about it. And again, I cannot verify and vouch for everything he said was 100% correct. But leave it to Jen Psaki and the team to come forward en masse and now and point out all the things he did wrong.
Well, the president has just finished his address to the nation, and was that a speech? I mean, it felt almost like, it was a bad, fast-talking infomercial with a lot of anti-immigrant language intertwined in there. It was extremely loose on facts, and he basically tried to shout his alleged accomplishments at the American people as if that was going to convince them that they were all true. I'm going to get some reaction and experts help analyzing what he said in just a moment. But first, I just want to quickly fact check just a few. I mean, there were so many in there. We were working as quickly as we could, but just a few of the president's most blatant falsehoods. Tonight, Trump announced checks for $1,776 for U.S. troops. First of all, Congress controls the power of the purse in the country, not the president. Correct. So if that happens, that is Congress sending those checks, even if Trump puts his name on them. But that number, $1,776, is also kind of interesting because an analysis from the Yale Budget Lab estimates that as of November, Trump tariffs have cost Americans an average of $1,700 per household this year.
Are you that clueless? Do you not understand 1776? Our nation's birthday, which we're getting ready to celebrate 250th anniversary. 1776. Do you not get it, Jen Psaki? Do you not know your history? You want to fall back on some Yale report, the budget saying we're losing 1,700 to families. And I don't know if that's right. You think I'm going to buy everything you say without question? No. And in fact, when you say Trump was all about going after migrants, he was not. He was going after illegals. When are you guys going to get that straight? There's a difference between illegals and legal migrants. And they're talking about his numbers are way off. I'll get into that in more detail. We'll talk about Trump on the illegals. But I want to let you know that Dr. Jonathan Reiner, CNN medical analyst, was one of many to voice alarm about the president's manic address as the cameras rolled. They say he was going 2, 3, 4 times as fast as he should, saying he fired off mistruth after mistruth. And this Dr. Reiner says, I'm seriously concerned about the health of this president. No one should be happy to see the president look like this. He looks unwell. Where the hell have you been when Biden was in office? And what looked unwell about Trump? They are going to look for anything they can. And I'm going to break down a couple things for you as reference inflation numbers and everything else and make a comparison. But let's go to Trump last night, where he was talking about not migrants, illegals.
After just 1 year, we have achieved more than anyone could have imagined. Starting on day one, I took immediate action to stop the invasion of our southern border. For the past 7 months, 0 illegal aliens have been allowed into our country, a feat which everyone said was absolutely impossible. Do you remember when Joe Biden said that he needed Congress to pass legislation to help close the border? He was always blaming Congress and everyone else. As it turned out, we didn't need legislation. We just needed a new president.
Yes, that's right.
We inherited the worst border anywhere in the world, and we quickly turned it into the strongest border in the history of our country. In other words, in a few short months, we went from worst to best.
Can anyone deny that? Do we see the flood of illegals crossing the border now? No, we do not. Do we know many are still trying to get in? Yes. Do we know many are in the country that should not be here? Yes. But back to Jen Psaki, circle back Psaki, who remember serving as a White House spokeswoman, I should say, for Biden in this term originally. But Jen and her MS Now guest, I'm not even going to bother with the woman's name. She's one of their MS correspondents or whatever. You don't know her, you won't know her, and you will care less about her name. But here they are talking about where Trump went off the rails.
There were so many economic falsehoods in there. It was like Micro Machine, if people know that reference. Man meets Pinocchio, just talking about the economy and shouting at the American public. What did you note in there that stuck out to you as the most glaring things?
Oh, man, that was like a manic gish gallop, if anybody ever did high school debate. There were a lot of lies per second there. I took some notes. So among the first things out of his mouth was a lie. He said that he inherited the worst inflation in 48 years. Absolutely not true. Inflation when he took office was about 3%. Today it is about 3%. So definitely not the highest in 48 years, and also no different today than it was at the beginning.
And you left out the fact that during the Biden administration, it really ramped up. The House Budget Committee had pointed out the consumer price during the Biden administration at one point, cumulative, was a staggering 17.1%. You just kind of ignore that. And you want to talk about what Trump is saying it's the lowest in 40 years, and there's no such record of that. Well, I'm not going to argue the point. Why don't you look at the current facts? And inflation unexpectedly fell in November. That word coming out today. The Consumer Price Index rising 2.7% from a year ago, down from 3% in September, but below the 3.1% forecast by economists. They can't dispute that, but they will. Numbers don't lie, but liars figure. Isn't that the correct statement? And once again, to Jen Psaki.
I mentioned some of the statistics we've seen about the impacts on individual households, about his tariff policies at this point and what they have done to American households.
So I would say, first of all, fact-checked true. Tariff probably is his favorite word. So
Fair.
At least that part is correct.
Seems to be.
But pretty much everything else that he has said about tariffs is false. It is Americans who are, by and large, paying these tariffs. And we can see it in the data. We are already seeing, again, as I mentioned before, inflation ticking up. It hasn't come up quite as much, I think, as a lot of people had feared. In general, the consequence of his tariffs so far is higher prices, fewer jobs. As I mentioned, manufacturing jobs are down, and a lot of uncertainty and a slowdown in the economy.
They continue to try to find any piece of lint on Trump's suit that they can and say, look at this. Look how disheveled he is and out of control. They want to ignore what's in front of them. Factchecking.org, another source. Inflation during Joe Biden's full term. This is a rundown of various stats during his presidency. Factchecking.org does not take donations. It is apparently trying to do the best it can down the middle of the road. And it says inflation roared back, shrinking the value of the workers' paychecks. Consumer prices rose 21.5%, gasoline 31%, and after adjusting for inflation, private sector weekly earnings shrank 4%. What was that? What was that? Just a blip? No, that was 4 years of Joe Biden. I want to thank one of my listeners sending me a picture of a Perrytown gas station price. Let me see. What was that price again? He sent it to me again today, and I couldn't open it up yesterday. And you probably are familiar with this as well as I am. We have in Perryville, he was at a service station, and they were showing the gallon for gasoline was $2.49. $2.49 for regular. In the meantime, the Daily Beast, a leftist organization, continues to claim this was just a mistruth after mistruth by Trump. We'll get more into some of the numbers in this second hour, and I'm going to burden you with them now, but suffice it to say, everything they're throwing at you, some might have half truth, some might be a full truth. Most of it is filled and riddled with lies. But they're very good about pointing out someone else lying. Trump, Pinocchio, as they call it. All right, on another subject, how Maduro plans to run U.S. blockades. This is a laugh. In the meantime, more lies about the cocaine boats. ABC News.
Overnight, there was another deadly strike on a suspected drug boat, killing 4. This one in the eastern Pacific, closer to Colombia. This brings to 99 the number killed in these boat strikes, with no evidence made public that these boats are carrying drugs.
Well, what the hell do you think they're carrying? They're running fast speed across the waters. They're loaded with large packets of white. Now, are they just trying to dump salt into the ocean? Come on. What do you think they're carrying? This is the idiocy of the legacy media. Wake up and at least try to act like you're coherent and you're legitimate. And they continue to say suspected drug boats, but there's no proof that they're drug boats because we blow them out of the water. Why else would some of these high-speed boats equipped with 4 high-powered engines be roaring across out of the Venezuelan coastline. And now Maduro is apparently thinking, I know how to stop this blockade Trump has put up.
According to multiple reports, Venezuelan naval vessels began escorting ships carrying oil byproducts late Tuesday night into early Wednesday morning. The tankers departed from Puerto Jose, a key export hub on Venezuela's northeast coast. Ship tracking data confirms the movement. So do officials familiar with the situation. These ships weren't empty. They were carrying petroleum coke and urea bound for Asian markets, a clear signal that Venezuela intends to keep exporting, sanctions or no sanctions.
Yeah.
And crucially, these tankers were not sneaking out. They were escorted by the Venezuelan Navy in full view.
Ooh, the Venezuelan Navy. You know what that consists of? They've got about 25 patrol boats. They have 2 submarines, possibly non-operational, German diesel, and they have a mini-sub. And they have other ships that don't amount to anything. They don't really have a navy. But they want you to believe that we have a Navy and we'll defend our... They could not do it against the U.S. Navy. But let them continue to play the games. Cardinal Timothy Dolan resigning as New York Archbishop. He, of course, born in St. Louis, 1950, one of 5 children. And Timothy Dolan stepping aside. No word on exactly why other than that. And, of course, we had word yesterday that Dan Bongino is going to be leaving the Secret Service. No clear reason as to why or not at this point either, other than Trump saying he's done a good job. Wish him well as he moves forward. But there's more behind that story, and I would like to know it. It may take a while for it to come out. And in the next hour, we're going to focus again on how Republican senators are questioning Hegseth's decision not to release full video of bombing one of those cocaine boats. Coming up, Vivek Ramaswamy says a lot of things are wrong about America. Really? Well, he doesn't, but John Daniel Davidson does from the Federalist. And our story behind the story, Gilley's nightclub in Pasadena. Lock and load, ready on the right.
Listening to Larry Connors, USA.
In all these years that Wellington Environmental has been my sponsor, I've never mentioned their duct cleaning services. Allergy season is here, and Wellington crews clean air ducts daily in homes and commercial buildings, also cleaning air handling units and diffusers in commercial facilities. Why? Well, because people will see black dirt and mold on the vents, or they are actually suffering from allergies. Don't be fooled by low-cost duct cleaning providers saying they charge only per vent, because once they get on site, the price will skyrocket. Wellington does not do this, never has. Wellington will give you an estimate, and you say Larry Connors, and immediately you get a 20% discount. Call Cindy. 314-644-4930. 314-644-4930. Make your home and business better, safer with Wellington. Be well with Wellington. Back pain? Follow me to Esquire Sports Medicine, where they've got your back. Esquire is the oldest sports medicine clinic in St. Louis. Dr. Draghi and his team of chiropractors can get you back to work, back to life without the pain. New patients usually scheduled within 24 hours. 314-644-0885. 644-0885. EsquireSportsMedicine.com. Another day must be another roofer in town. And John Beal and I were talking. He said, every time you turn around, there's a new roofing company. Many of them have no idea what they're doing, and the statistics show that many will be out of business within 2 to 5 years. Who are you going to call to help you then? You need to remember only one name, John Beal. John Beal Roofing. You have a problem, he can take care of it, and we'll be here for you. John Beal Roofing. Call 1-800-NEW-ROOF. 1-800-NEW-ROOF. Renewal by Anderson asking, are you still battling cold drafts? Windows icing up again? Utility costs surging? You're worried about paying more every month? The truth is, you may already be paying for new windows and money lost to energy escaping your home. And here's the thing. You don't want to do this project twice. Renewal by Anderson spends every day replacing bad technology, poor installation of windows and doors that simply don't stand the test of time. But you can afford the best. America's most trusted window replacement company, Anderson. Call 877-WINDOWS or visit rbastl.com. Learn about our December savings event right now. 877-WINDOWS, rbastl.com. Renewal by Anderson. Superior products, exceptional service.
This is News Talk STL.
Come with me now. Come with me now. Come with me now. I'll take you now. Come with me now. I'll show you how. Come with me now. I'll take you now.
This is Larry Connors USA.
Larry Connors USA.
In an op-ed for the New York Times this week, Vivek Ramaswamy argued that being an American really means nothing more than assenting to a set of intellectual propositions and swearing allegiance to the U.S., and added some more notes. But note this. John Daniel Davidson, senior editor of The Federalist, says Vivek is wrong about American identity and wrong about America. John, welcome aboard.
Hey, thanks for having me, Larry.
So this is an interesting twist when I saw that you were saying that Vivek is wrong about American identity and wrong about America. Help us understand where you're going with this.
Well, Vivek is putting forward a vision of American identity that only sort of came into popular use after World War II and in the decades from the 40s to the 60s, this notion that America is an idea, a propositional nation. If you agree with the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, then you can become an American. And it doesn't matter where you're from, what culture you grew up in, what your religion is, what your cultural practices or customs are. If you believe in the Constitution and you swear allegiance to America, then you're just as American as somebody whose ancestors came over on the Mayflower. That's Vivek's argument. That's the argument we hear from a lot of sort of Romney-era Republicans who believe in a creedal nation as opposed to America being a real nation, a nation of actual particular people with a common history and a shared future in a particular place. And so I'm pushing back on that and saying that's a fundamental misunderstanding of what America is and what American identity should be. We are not just a propositional nation. We are a people with a culture, and part of that culture is a set of intellectual propositions, but they make no sense outside of the cultural context from which they come.
You point out that the source of our liberty, for example, is not our founding documents, great as they are, but our folk ways. The former emerged from the latter, not the other way around. Please explain.
That's right. That's right. And I'll give you an example of that. You know, we talk about things like religious liberty and the rule of law as being quintessentially American, but those aren't exactly quintessentially American. They're only American when they occur in our particular cultural context, which is derived from two things: the ethnic English people who settled this country and their Christian faith. Because of course they have rule of law in other parts of the world, in other cultures. Of course they have things like religious liberty or meritocracy in other parts of the world. Countries like Singapore have both rule of law and meritocracy, but nobody would say that Singapore is like America or that Singapore has an American identity because it has rule of law and meritocracy. Those things make sense, and they become American only in our particular cultural, societal context here in this country, a context that was forged by our English ancestors. And so I think we need to be clear about that. You know, because otherwise you end up with these absurd arguments from people like Vivek Ramaswamy, who thinks that all you have to do is, perform a series of intellectual, assents to propositions and sign a few documents, and presto changeo, anyone from anywhere in the world can become an American.
Well, now
That's
let's
just not true.
John, to the extent that they can come in and apply for citizenship and go through citizenship and declare allegiance to the U.S., they do become an American. What are we missing here? What am I missing?
I think that you need to make a distinction between technical, legal U.S. citizenship and American identity. Not all U.S. citizens are Americans. Is Ilhan Omar an American? In what sense is Ilhan Omar an American? So I'll give you a concrete example. A concrete example: in the city of Hamtramck, Michigan, traditionally a Polish town, has been totally taken over by Muslims over the past 30 years or so. The city council and the mayor, they're all Muslims. This week, the city of Hamtramck passed an ordinance allowing religious animal sacrifice in people's backyards and garages. It's being demanded by the Muslims in Hamtramck, who have, as part of their cultural folkways, animal sacrifice. Now, Vivek Ramaswamy's version of Americanness has no answer for that, because these Muslims in Hamtramck, they believe in the rule of law. They went through the city council to get this ordinance passed. They believe in religious liberty. This is their religious liberty. And yet, would we say that this is an American identity at work here? That would we say that these people are Americans in the way you and I are? Absolutely not. It becomes an absurd argument when you put it in those terms. And you could say the same for all sorts of folkways and cultural practices: cousin marriage, women in burqas, animal sacrifice. The list goes on. These are things that are totally alien to the American identity and experience.
I agree. I think everyone agrees with that point. But some of the other kind of mixed in there that, if someone comes here and wants to be an American citizen and they go through the process and they become a naturalized citizen, I don't take away from the fact they are an American naturalized. Why is that so wrong? Or is it?
Because in the aggregate, when you have people who have nothing more than what we might call a paper American citizenship, in other words, they formally have their documents in order, but nothing about their worldview as American. When you have that at scale in the aggregate, in the millions or the tens of millions in the case of the Biden administration, you are transforming this country and this country's identity into something that is fundamentally un-American, that is alien to our culture and to our way of life. The example of animal sacrifice is one, cousin marriage is another, honor killings, all of these practices that are super common in other parts of the world, that are part of those cultures' folkways, worldview, religious view, they don't have a place in America. So to the individual question, if an individual person from India or Pakistan or wherever wants to come here and become American, they have to shed completely those cultural folkways that are common to their homeland, that are incompatible with American culture. And that's something a lot of people don't want to hear.
You're right, and it raises a concern. I mean, you look back over the history, as you pointed out, all the way back to the 40s and forward. We wanted the folks to come and share their culture and assimilate, bringing their culture, their music, their food, their language, but not to destroy and create chaos and fear. And we considered that was acceptable. Now you're saying, is it just the Muslim, Islamic issue or beyond?
Well, I think that there's all sorts of cultural practices that go far beyond the Muslim world that are incompatible with American society. I mentioned, honor killings. Right. That's something that's common to the Muslim world, but there's other parts, other cultures and other religions that conduct that sort of thing too. I mentioned animal sacrifice. Of course, that's not unique to Muslims. Other cultures and religions practice that as well. There's a whole host of things that are not compatible with American culture and life. And that, yes, individuals can shed those things and become American. But, part of this is really digging into what does assimilation mean? It doesn't just mean agreeing with a set of abstract propositions about good governance and human rights. It means adopting the actual folkways and customs and habits, the whole worldview of American. And the worldview of an American is one that is distinctly English and distinctly Christian, even if the person themselves themselves as not ethnically English or religiously Christian. Their worldview and their habits and their customs are formed by those things. And so it's not impossible for somebody from another part of the world to adopt those, but it does not happen at scale under conditions of mass immigration.
And what about native-born Americans that don't fully comply and accept the views you're pointing out?
Yeah, I would say that to the extent that they don't have those customs and folkways and worldview and habits, they are also not fully American. Somebody who's a communist, whose ancestors came over from the Mayflower, is betraying their own ancestral heritage by adopting those views and that worldview. And so we do a really bad job, and we have since the end of World War II, when we adopted this notion of propositional Americanism, of assimilating our own native-born population. And so that's another argument for really rethinking our whole immigration scheme. If we can't make Americans out of newcomers, if we can't make Americans out of the native-born population, how can we make Americans out of newcomers?
That is a powerful statement right there. John, I want to thank you for your time. John Daniel Davidson, senior editor of Federalist. John, I'm going to impose a question. I'm going to put you on the spot here. You are the author of Pagan America, The Decline of Christianity in the Dark Age to Come. I would like to ask now if you consider, if your schedule allows, we can clarify it later, if we can get you the Christmas Eve to discuss your book in particular, because I think it'd be a perfect timing for it.
I'll have to get back to you on that one, Larry.
All right. Well, I appreciate your consideration. Thanks, John. And if we don't talk again, thanks, wishing you a blessed Christmas.
You as well. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. That's a lot to think about, the way he lays it out. And in the next hour, I have Konstantin Kisin. He's a British, Russian, and 25% Jewish, he claims, talking about how we deal with the Muslim Islamic factions and basically saying I'm wrong in the way I've been talking about. I'll have to admit I'm opposed to what he said. I'm not opposed, but I have some issues with it. Maybe you will as well. That'll be coming up in our next hour. As we said with Larry Connors USA, you don't just get news, analysis, opinion. You get education. So we'll get into that in more detail. Also want to remind you, if you haven't participated in our food drive, please go to NewsTalkSTL and see how to contribute. NewsTalkSTL. Coming up next, the story behind the story. Mickey Gillies in Pasadena.
You can connect with Larry on Twitter at Larry Connors USA.
Tom Shaw Realtors has been helping sell, buy, lease property all over Missouri for almost 100 years. Call him, 636-532-1922, or visit shawrealtors.com. You want the best place to watch baseball or any sport and be able to enjoy premium cigars and whiskeys? Lit Cigar Lounge. Lit has so many events each month, you need to constantly check the Lit Cigar Lounge Facebook. You don't want to miss anything. Plus, you can order food from Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta, delivered within minutes right to your table. By the way, we're in the season for great patio dining. Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta has your table waiting. Renewal by Anderson asking, are you still battling cold drafts? Windows icing up again? Utility costs surging? You're worried about paying more every month? The truth is, you may already be paying for new windows and money lost to energy escaping your home. And here's the thing, you don't want to do this project twice. Renewal by Anderson spends every day replacing bad technology, poor installation of windows and doors that simply don't stand the test of time. But you can afford the best. America's most trusted window replacement company, Anderson. Call 877-WINDOWS or visit rbastl.com. Learn about our December savings event right now. 877-WINDOWS, rbastl.com. Renewal by Anderson. Superior products, exceptional service. Back pain? Follow me to Esquire Sports Medicine, where they've got your back. Esquire is the oldest sports medicine clinic in St. Louis. Dr. Draghi and his team of chiropractors can get you back to work, back to life without the pain. New patients usually scheduled within 24 hours. 314-644-0885. 644-0885. EsquireSportsMedicine.com.
This is News Talk STL.
Well, you can tell by the way I use my walk. I'm a woman's man. No time to talk. Music loud. Women walk. I've been kicked around since I was born. Never tolerate. I don't care. And you may look the other way. But we can try to understand. And do your time. Further away. Everybody staying alive.
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
Now, Larry Connors with the story behind the story.
A 1, a 2, a 1, 2, 3, go! All the girls all get prettier at closing time. How they all began to look like movie stars. How the girls all get prettier at closing time. When the change starts taking place, it puts a glow on every face of the fallen angels of the backstreet boys.
That is Mickey Gilley singing the song that appeared also at an Urban Cowboy and the nightclub named after him, Gilley's in Pasadena, opening in 1970. Gilley's launched Mickey Gilley's career, actually. Sherwood Cryer owned the club. It had previously been called Shelley's. It was reopened in 1970 under the name Gilley's with Mickey Gilley as a partner. Gilley grew up in Faraday, Louisiana. His cousin, Jerry Lee Lewis, and yes, Jimmy Swaggart. Swaggart wanted to call the club a den of sin. Sherwood insisted on naming it Gilley's since Mickey Gilley was going to be the headlining act, but there were many others to follow. The original Gilley's in Pasadena, Texas. My in-laws lived maybe 2 miles from there. And yes, I will admit, I spent a few nights in Gilley's. It was built as the world's largest honky-tonk. 6,000 person capacity. 6,000. Had a shooting gallery, showers for truckers. It did have a rodeo arena with mechanical bulls, but they also had a real rodeo set up outside. Pool tables, punching bags in case you couldn't reach the guy next to you. And as I say, a dance floor big enough for holding thousands. The Guinness Book of World Records does list Gilley's as the largest honky-tonk. Gilley's was open 7 days a week from 10 a.m. to 2 a.m. The motto was, we doze, but we never close. It was big along the Texas Gulf Coast in the 70s in the Houston area. Pasadena, just outside Houston. Pasadena, a center of many petrochemical plants, and a lot of the petrochemical workers would end up leaving their job. When they got off, they were headed right to Gilley's. A little socializing, a little dancing, often the Texas two-step. And yes, there were from time to time a few, shall I call them scuffles or flat-out fights. There were some fights. No one ever got killed that I know of. But Gilley's was drawing them from all over, not just Texas, but beyond, as word got out. Live from Gilley's was carried nationally by more than 500 stations, and then thanks to the Armed Forces Radio, the show was broadcast around the globe. These nightly shows were broadcast weekly on radio from 1977 to 89. And there were more performers than just Gilley. They brought in Loretta Lynn, Ernest Tubb, Emmylou Harris, Roseanne Cash, all of them playing at Gilley's, and many others, many of them doing it live. And then, of course, came the Urban Cowboy story. It was originally put out as an issue of Esquire magazine about Urban Cowboy, called The Ballad of the Urban Cowboy, America's Search for True Grit. That was in 1978. And then, of course, the hopes were a movie would be made of the story. And sure enough, the movie Urban Cowboy began filming in 1979. Most of the movie filmed inside Gilley's. And what wasn't filmed inside Gilley's was a nearby trailer park or local highways or a petrochemical plant. where John Travolta was working as the character Bud, working at a petrochemical plant. And he fell in love with Sissy, played by Deborah Winger. They meet at Gillies, they marry, separate, then reunite. All of this was part of the story of Gillies at that point. The dancing, all the music that came out of the Urban Cowboy soundtrack was amazing, and it still resonates today. Some interesting points in addition to that. The beginning of Urban Cowboy began with this song, Hello, Texas.
Pulled out of Chicago, hearted old Chi-town round, rolling along by the Interstate 10, Lord knows where Texas bound. Hello, Texas. Hello, Texas. Sure is good to see you again. Hello, Texas.
Now, that song was not performed by Mickey Gilley. It was performed by Jimmy Buffett. But it set the stage for what was going to happen at Gillies. I know there were many nights I might be there a little late, but always careful when I left. I was going to make very sure I was not going to be grabbed up by any of the officers watching the area in case you were a little bit over the limit. In fact, I had to be very careful, and there were times I had to drive friends out of there. And there were some scuffles from time to time. That large dance floor in the famous Mechanical Bull, it got a lot of attention. The Mechanical Bull, if they are running the Mechanical Bull, they can make it do anything they want. Now, I'd had some experience younger age as a bull rider, not PBR bulls that are the wildest and the most wicked on the earth, but the Mechanical Bull, it could do things a real bull couldn't. And riding a bull, you learn that if you watch the head, you get an idea of what the bull's going to do next. There's no head on the Mechanical Bull. And anytime guys got on it trying to act like they were a cowboy, as I tried to play as well, and I'd had some experience with bulls, and folks would spread the word, so they were looking to dump me as fast as they could. And then they would get some beautiful young ladies on the Mechanical Bull, and it went real slow and easy. I mean, it was mesmerizing. I would tell you that was probably one of the highlights for many going to the Gillies. They weren't going to ride the damn thing, but they didn't mind watching some pretty ladies ride it. There was a regular at Gillies, and he was used a lot frequently through the movie, Gator Conley. Conley stated, a lot of people say the movie made Gillies, but actually it was the other way around. And Urban Cowboy became a box office hit and brought Gillies into the American pop culture, making the club one of the main tourist draws in Houston and through the South. And even after the fad passed, the Gillies tried to still continue to draw crowds. The Academy of Country Music awarded Gillies the title Best Nightclub of the Year in 1984. Now, when they were filming and putting out the movie, after they began filming in 1979, then they released it, the soundtrack had a numerous amount of artists on it. Many of the songs you would recognize. In fact, as we continue with more of the story behind the story, you'll hear one of them right away.
You are listening to Larry Connors, USA.
So I hear an out-of-towner asking someone, where's the best place to eat? Before they could respond, I said, Cafe Napoli. Where? Well, I said, Cafe Napoli in Clayton, Napoli 2 in Town and Country, Napoli 3 in St. Charles, right next door to Napoli C, and then you got Napoli Kirkwood, plus you got Napoli Pizza and Pasta in Chesterfield. You'll find Napoli everywhere. It's not too early to book a party and buy gift cards. Cafe Napoli.
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
Now, the end of the story behind the story.
You can't hide your hiding eyes, and your smile is a in disguise.
The Eagles' Lying Eyes was one of the songs featured on the soundtrack of Urban Cowboy. As I said, there were many artists on there. Charlie Daniels, Devil Went Down to Georgia, Orange Blossom Special, and numerous other songs by other artists. And it all drew more attention to Gilley's in Pasadena, just outside Houston. And the crowds continued to come, and especially after the movie was released. As I said, it made a big hit with John Travolta and made him a pop culture hero at that point. Urban Cowboy was a box office hit from the beginning. But there was a time that things began to change. And I witnessed that as well. The club began to show wear and tear, and there was not a lot being done to keep it not only safe, but basically sanitized. Mickey Gilley got frustrated. He believed that Sherwood Cryer was failing to maintain the place and bring in quality acts, and Cryer refused to make any major renovations over the years. And then you had the fans. Those were going. They were complaining of everything from dirty restrooms, a bad parking lot, and other issues. Gilley said this reflects poorly on my name, and he sued to gain control of the club in 1988, claiming that Cryer had been keeping all the profits. The jury awarded Gilley the club named after him and forced Cryer to pay $17 million. Cryer had to give up much of his real estate to cover that debt. So the club did operate under Gilley briefly after the lawsuit. Then the judge ordered it closed in 1989 due to a loss of profits. Gilley was able to rescue the tapes of the live shows before a suspicious fire burned down Gilley's. That was in 1990. Suspicious as in the word arson. Who would be responsible? Oh, there were a lot of fingers being pointed, a lot of names being bandied about in a way that it was not going to create a case of slander and libel. There's no sense me going through the names now. Some were saying Gilley wanted it burned down anyway because it was not doing what it should and it shouldn't stay. He didn't want that as a testament. Others were saying Sherwood Cryer and some of his gang were behind the fire, the arson. The Pasadena School District, after that fire burned down the club in 1990, the Pasadena School District owned the lot since 1992, and in early 2000s, the property was still locked in tax liens, unpaid taxes, more than the property is worth. In 2005, November 2005, all the remaining structures, including the outdoor rodeo arena where they would pull up cattle trucks and put cows and horses and bulls into a rodeo arena for outside, all of that demolished for construction of a middle school. They kept the Gilley's restored sign, could be seen about a mile away at the Cowboy Ranch restaurant. Now, Gilley later opened a Gilley's Dallas in 2003. This honky-tonk had more than 90,000 square feet of event space. It also included a large dance floor and, again, the famous Mechanical Bull. And then in 2011, it boasted a new venue, the Jack Daniel Saloon. They had live music on Friday and Saturday nights. In the 2010s, Gilley's clubs also opened in Las Vegas. You probably have seen them. And 2 locations in Oklahoma. And by 2013, Mickey Gilley was making plans to bring Gilley's back to Pasadena, looking for investors. Going to have a new complex with a bigger dance floor, concert stage, bar, restaurant, museum, and of course, the Mechanical Bull. Never came to pass. And in fact, Mickey Gilley passed away May 7, 2022, age 86. Complications of bone cancer, passing away in Branson, Missouri, with family nearby. I don't know how many times I asked my girls, have you seen Urban Cowboy? I mean, I was pressing on my, you got to see Urban Cowboy. It was not out of line for teenagers to see it. It was not over the top R-rated or anything like that. I would say maybe PG-13 by the ratings of today, but the music, even if you just got the soundtrack, is amazing. And, of course, every time I bring up my girls, yeah, Dad, we saw it. I guess there's some things a father never learns. Your children know more than you. You might as well back off. Have a lot of memories of Gillies in Pasadena. And remember one night when tornadoes were roaring through the area, and one touching down right at the edge of Gillies. No severe damage out of it, but again, that was only 2 miles from my in-laws' house. That's the story behind the story of Vicky Gillies, a nightclub originating in Pasadena, Texas, in its heyday of 1970 to 1990. And now locations across the nation, but the original was Pasadena. Tomorrow, the story behind the story of Captain Kangaroo. Yeah, that's a switch, isn't it? That might catch a lot of you and say, I hadn't thought of him in years. Well, you're going to hear the story behind the story of Captain Kangaroo tomorrow night. Again, I want to remind you to participate in Feed My People. Go to NewsTalkSTL and find out where you can leave non-perishable items to help those in need. And don't forget our Christmas stocking promotion. You could win a $500 gift certificate, but you got to register. Go to NewsTalkSTL, get all the details. Hour number 2 coming up. You don't want to miss that. And remember our pledge, one nation under God.
You can hear podcasts of this program at Larry Connors USA Facebook. Larry Connors USA Facebook.
John Bill Roofing reminds you we are in the stormy season, and that means if you have even the smallest leak in your roof, you could soon have a much bigger issue. Call John Bill to make sure that your biggest investment is protected. That call can save you major dollars. If you do get hit during a storm, John Bill has a rapid response team. Call 1-800-NEW-ROOF. 1-800-NEW-ROOF. 1-800-NEW-ROOF, John Bill. You and I might have something in common, back pain. I can tell you where I go for help. Esquire Sports Medicine, the spine of St. Louis. They can put athletes back on the field so they can clearly help us. Esquire Sports Medicine, hands-on chiropractic help on Big Bend, just north of Highway 40. 314-644-0885. EsquireSportsMedicine.com. EsquireSportsMedicine.com. Great patio season to enjoy any of the Cafe Napoli locations. How about the Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta in Chesterfield? Enjoying coal-fired pizza, nothing else like it. Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta in Chesterfield. A few doors down, Lit Cigar Lounge, where you can enjoy premium cigars and whiskeys. Check the Lit Cigar Lounge Facebook for details, plus gift cards for friends. I'll see you at Lit Cigar Lounge in Chesterfield. It's that time of season when families, businesses are moving. For local or long distance, I endorse McGuire Moving. Get a date set soon before the schedules are booked. 314-241-0600. 241-0600. McGuire is constantly giving back to our veterans, such as support dogs for our brave. So with McGuire, you're getting excellent service and helping our vets. McGuireMoving.com. So many times, Vincent's Jewelers has helped me surprise someone special. Vincent's locally owned can do the same for you, and you don't have to break the bank to get something really nice, maybe even customized. The smile you're going to get back from that special someone, priceless. Check VincentsJewelers.com every day because new items are arriving and there are special deals. Vincent's, my only jeweler. VincentsJewelers.com. VincentsJewelers.com. Renewal by Anderson asking, are you still battling cold drafts? Windows icing up again? Utility costs surging? You're worried about paying more every month? The truth is, you may already be paying for new windows and money lost to energy escaping your home. And here's the thing, You don't want to do this project twice. Renewal by Andersen spends every day replacing bad technology, poor installation of windows and doors that simply don't stand the test of time. But you can afford the best. America's most trusted window replacement company, Andersen. Call 877-WINDOWS or visit rbastl.com. Learn about our December savings event right now. 877-WINDOWS, rbastl.com. Renewal by Andersen. Superior products, exceptional service.
This is News Talk STL.
You want answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth. You can't handle the truth.
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
In the end, government either serves the productive, patriotic, hardworking American citizen, or it serves those who break the laws, cheat the system, and seek power and profit at the expense of our nation. Look at Minnesota, where Somalians have taken over the economics of the state and have stolen billions and billions of dollars from Minnesota and indeed from the United States of America. And we're going to put an end to it. For so long as before my election, the vast majority of good and decent Americans were forced to watch as corrupt politicians plundered the halls of power, exploited our taxpayers, and pillaged every system that makes civilized society function. But not anymore, and you see that every day, not anymore. We're putting America first, and we are making America great again. Very simple. We are making America great again.
President Trump in his address to the nation last night. And I told you before he appeared that it would probably be a rah-rah speech and listing accomplishments. And that's pretty much what it was. Nothing really new except the dividend for our warriors, which we'll talk about later. And the questions are, can he actually make that happen? A payment of $1,776 to every member of our military. $1,776 resonating with the founding of our nation. And we're getting ready to celebrate the 250th anniversary. But the leftists and the legacy media condemning everything he said last night and picking apart any strand they can find loose. And I don't know how accurate some of the remarks were. I'll be honest with you. I didn't bother doing all the fact-checking. I leave it to the left loonies to do it, and maybe sometimes they're right, and sometimes they're so far off, it's laughable. I'll tell you what they were doing last night, and looking at some of the responses from it. The Daily Beast talking about the CNN medical analyst, Dr. Jonathan Reiner, was one of many apparently voicing alarm about the president's manic address. They're using that term manic. They're going to use it over and over again. It's wash, repeat, wash, do it again. Everybody's going to call it. That was a manic address. It was a maniac giving it. That's what they want you to believe. And all he's doing is detailing what he's accomplished. And he was doing it at a rapid speed. And they say he was going at 2-3 times the speed. Something was wrong with him. And in fact, Dr. Reiner claims, I'm seriously concerned about the health of the president. No one should be happy to see the president look like this. He looks unwell. Did you ever hear from Dr. Reiner before, the CNN physician, about Joe Biden? Trump did not look unhealthy last night. He was rapid firing his accomplishments. Now, the Daily Beast, which is a left-leaning, planted left publication, said in unguarded comments in front of journalists after the address, the president admitted, now I haven't seen anyone to confirm this, but they say he admitted it was not his choice to do the speech. It was Chief of Staff Susie Wiles made him do it because she wanted to play cleanup amid the fallout from her embarrassing, as they refer in the Daily Beast, embarrassingly candid Vanity Fair article. And then they write in Daily Beast, here's how they write it. In Wednesday night's 18-minute double-speed diatribe, the 79-year-old president fired off mistruth after mistruth about his administration, how it's doing, and attacked his predecessor without having anything new to say. The fact that he could cite several things of what he's done that Biden ignored, I think that says everything, but not to the left. Welcome to hour number 2, Larry Connors USA, December 18, 2025. And reminding you, when we're on the air, we are live streaming. You can watch the program. It is so easy. Go to NewsTalkSTL, Rumble, Facebook, Twitter, Larry Connors USA, Rumble, and Facebook. And everything goes up as a podcast later at LarryConnorsUSA.com, NewsTalkSTL, Larry Connors USA, Facebook, audio and video. So if you can't stay for the entire 2 hours, you can still pull it up. Watch, listen, share, push share, send it on to others. You are our multiplying factor, and I appreciate everything you do. And I also want to thank you for supporting our sponsors. They keep this program on the air, and I've got some wonderful sponsors. Some have been advertising with Larry Connors USA, such as Wellington Environmental and John Beal, for 13 years. They don't stay unless they're happy with what's happening. Cafe Napoli, another one, been with me 8+ years and continues to renew. Now let's talk about, Trump was pointing out the fraud that took place in Minnesota. And it's been documented in numerous ways, and it's pretty hard to ignore it. But yes, the left was doing it. In fact, so was Governor Walz. There's a disability advocate, Nathaniel Olson, ripping into Walz, and the Minnesota Department of Health Services, talking about the fraud that was taking place constantly.
Madam Chair, I'm Nathaniel M. Olson, a disability advocate for the state of Minnesota. I've heard the commissioners and the Department of Human Services, but the one thing that I'm freaking worried about is this freaking fraud that is happening over our state, where there's 600,000 disability people in the state of Minnesota that could suffer. And sadly, it's quite interesting that we have Governor Walz speaking in front of the state and saying that this fraud is nothing but the side. But my people are done suffering. We're done with this fraud. We're done with the Department of Human Services coming up here and saying, oh, we're going to figure this out. This has been too long. The administration knew that this fraud was coming. I've talked to families, parents, everyone have been reaching out to me and saying, oh, this is what is happening to my child. This is what is happening to my child. We're afraid. We need to put aside these differences, and we need to come together and put a stop to this fraud.
Yeah, but you stop the fraud, you stop the money flow to those stealing it. Many are looking at Minnesota now as an epicenter of fraud. Minnesota officials who are concerned about it, and that does not include all of them. Walz will give lip service, but he was hearing from members of his state government for 5 years saying, we've got fraud going on here. He did nothing because a lot of it was centered in the Somalian community, and he needed those votes. Now he's saying, oh, we're going to tighten things and make it better. Yeah, right. That is the classic, the horse is out of the barn. Republican State Senator Kroon in Minnesota said, the state has been aware of this for a long time but failed to contain it. Minnesota has an epidemic of fraud, as the rest of the nation is learning. We've known here in Minnesota for quite some time we've had a massive fraud problem, and it's turning out that probably Minnesota is the epicenter of fraud in the U.S. right now. One of the programs they had, Feeding Our Future, that created during the pandemic-related issue, and a lot of pandemic money also siphoned off. They had various offices set up. You go around and look and check those addresses. In many cases, they found empty parking lots, non-existent offices, and legitimate businesses with had no association to the fraud and for the gathering of money. That was just standard practice. It's time we draw down on these people. Which brings me to Fannie. Yes, you remember Fannie Willis out of Georgia. She had her lover, Nathan Wade, of course, on her payroll. And again, fraudulently sending him money, taking trips with him, and again, defrauding the state of Georgia and others. And then when she's questioned about it, she goes ballistic.
Screen I don't review those documents, so you're asking me to look at documents that I haven't for the first time.
Why
what
not?
I can tell you is that I
I'll give you time
allowed
to review
Mr.
the
Wade to bill 160 hours a week, and then Mr. Wade would be the first one in the office making sure that my staff arrived. He corrected their behavior. They thought that 8:30 meant 8:30. He taught them that 8:30 means 7:45. He got there before them. He left after him. He taught them how to do this case, and he was a leader to that team and a public servant. And for that, him like me has been threatened thousands of times. You want something to investigate as a legislature? Investigate how many times they've called me the N-word. Why don't you investigate that? Why don't you investigate them writing on my house? Why don't you investigate the fact that my house has been swatted? If you want something to do with your time that makes sense, and you can use all this in your campaign ad, you attacked Fonnie Willis. What have you done, sir? Nothing.
Yeah.
So what have you to the screen? I know you said you don't approve.
I don't look at this. I've never seen it, so I can't talk to you about documents I don't approve and don't review. Can't talk to you about it.
Who does approve the documents in your office when invoices come in?
I thought we'd been through this.
I don't believe you said who reviews the invoices and approves the invoices in your
First of all, I have no firsthand knowledge of it.
Why not?
You have no firsthand knowledge.
You want me to testify about something I don't have any firsthand knowledge of?
I'm asking.
Then the question is immediately, why not? Why didn't you? And you're talking about your lover, Nathan Wade, spending 160 hours a week doing these actions you said were getting the staff to show up on time. I don't know where he found time to spend with you, Fannie, but I guess you guys figured out a way to make that work. And she said, well, quit investigating me and the money and everything. Why don't you look at all those people using the N-word against me? That's not an investigation, and that is a shame. No one should use that word. But you, my woman, she would get upset with that phrasing. You put yourself into this, no one else. And now it's coming down to a day of reckoning. And she's squirming and moving and throwing out all kinds of allegations. I want to point out to you that it's been 145 days since the Director of National Intel, Tulsi Gabbard, referred Barack Obama to the DOJ for criminal prosecution. Where does that case stand?
Director Gabbard, thank you. So just two questions, but to begin on that. The president yesterday, you've inferred that the former president helped lead a coup. Based on what you now see, do you believe President Obama is guilty of treason?
I'm leaving the criminal charges to the Department of Justice. I'm not an attorney, but as I've said previously, when you look at the intent behind creating a fake manufactured intelligence document that directly contradicts multiple assessments that were created by the intelligence community, the expressed intent and what followed afterward can only be described as a years-long coup and a treasonous conspiracy against the American people, our republic, and an attempt to undermine President Trump's administration.
And there's no doubt about that. But Gabbard's staying in her lane, saying they're looking at it on the prosecution level. I'm calling it out for what it is. And we still have no action against Obama, the Attorney General, Bondi, and others not doing anything. Maybe they're still working behind the scenes on it. And yeah, I want to see what they're saying about criminal prosecution of Obama for how he weaponized the DOJ, the FBI, the Attorney General's office to go after Trump. White House Chief of Staff Susie Wiles, in that Vanity Fair article, did say some things that I don't know the basis for it, assuming she was quoted correctly. The interview took place over 11 different interviews, and you can get things out of context a lot. So I don't know how much context was put into it. But one of the things she'd mentioned that J.D. Vance can be a conspiracy theorist. Now, what did that mean? I think that was bait for the left. I think that was bait, and they jumped on it. In fact, Vance admitted Susie is correct.
But conspiracy theorist, sometimes I am a conspiracy theorist, but I only believe in the conspiracy theories that are true. And by the way, Susie and I have joked in private and in public about that for a long time. For example, I believed in the crazy conspiracy theory back in 2020 that it was stupid to mask 3-year-olds at the height of the COVID pandemic, that we should actually let them develop some language skills I believed in this crazy conspiracy theory that the media and the government were covering up the fact that Joe Biden was clearly unable to do the job.
Right.
And I believed in the conspiracy theory that Joe Biden was trying to throw his political opponents in jail rather than win an argument against his political opponents. So, at least on some of these conspiracy theories, it turns out that a conspiracy theory is just something that was true 6 months before the media admitted it. And that's my understanding.
So J.D. Vance is willing to own conspiracy theorists. Call me that. But only believe in those that are true. I'm telling you, I think Susie Wiles in that remark to Vanity Fair was setting a trap with bait, a big chunk of cheese in that, and the rats came for it. And they ate it up and spread it around like Susie Wiles says Vance is a conspiracy theorist. And then you've got Kamala Harris. When this woman speaks, if you can understand her, and if you hear what she's saying, you have to do everything you can to keep from slapping your forehead.
Well, some people have actually said I was the most qualified candidate ever to run for president.
I like the some people say. Very nice, but go ahead.
Yeah. Now, that's a conspiracy theory.
Speaking fact, yeah.
You were the most qualified person to run for president. I think they believe their own press reports. That's not a good idea. A new national poll is raising alarms for Democrats. A Quinnipiac University survey released last night shows only 18% of voters approve the way Democrats in Congress are handling their job. 18%. 73% disapprove. That is the lowest job approval rating for Democrats in Congress since the Quinnipiac University poll began asking that question 16 years ago. You see the writing on the wall? And I have to tell you that we have some so-called Republicans that tend to fall to that side of the ledger from time to time. Get yourself straight. 18% Dem approval rating. Coming up later in this hour, the effort Maduro plans to stop and run the naval blockade around his country. It is laughable. It is laughable. But I'll give you details on it before we wrap up this hour. But also coming up, a British-Russian commentator on what many of us are doing regarding the terms Muslim and Islam. And based on what he says, I have to plead guilty, but I'm not sure that I'm wrong. And you might be with me, and would you be wrong or right? I'm going to defend my stance. What you're going to hear from this British-Russian commentator, he is a Konstantin Kessin, I should point out. And he says the way we're looking at Muslims and Islam is not just confusing, it's absolutely disorienting. And he makes a comparison based on apples to apples. That story's still to come. Lock and load, ready on the right.
You are listening to Larry Connors, USA.
I want to tell you more about Wellington Environmental's dustless blasting services. Wellington can blast paint, grease, graffiti, even stripes off parking lots. Truly amazing and powerful. But can Wellington blast something more sensitive? Yes, Wellington can use dry ice to blast soot and odors off smoke-damaged surfaces right after a fire. Currently, Wellington uses dry ice to clean mold off wood inside a home. Why? Well, dry ice immediately disappears, turns into a vapor. That means no mess to clean up, no damaged surfaces. You need to check with Wellington, always researching and practicing with new, better, faster, safer equipment and products for you. And it's very easy to schedule an estimator for your next project. Call Cindy, 314-644-4930, 644-4930. Be well with Wellington. McGuire Moving is silver certified, which means they are great at relocating senior citizens. In fact, McGuire is a household name because McGuire understands the stress involved when moving older adults. So if you or family members need help moving, I highly recommend McGuire Moving. 314-241-0600. 241-0600. Get a free in-home estimate. McGuireMoving.com. So many times, Vincent's Jewelers has helped me surprise someone special. Vincent's locally owned can do the same for you, and you don't have to break the bank to get something really nice, maybe even customized. The smile you're going to get back from that special someone, priceless. Check Vincent'sJewelers.com every day because new items are arriving and there are special deals. Vincent's, my only jeweler. Vincent'sJewelers.com. Vincent'sJewelers.com. Back pain? Follow me to Esquire Sports Medicine, where they've got your back. Esquire is the oldest sports medicine clinic in St. Louis. Dr. Draghi and his team of chiropractors can get you back to work, back to life without the pain. New patients usually scheduled within 24 hours. 314-644-0885. 644-0885. EsquireSportsMedicine.com.
This is News Talk STL.
I see the bad moon rising. I see trouble on the way. I see earthquakes and lightning. I see bad times today. Don't go around tonight.
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
Have you ever wondered why in the wake of every Islamist terrorist attack, our media and politicians bend over backwards to make the extraordinary claim that Islamism has nothing to do with Islam? The answer is a mixture of things, of course, but the central reason is easy to understand if you think about it logically. To avoid offending morons, let's not talk about people and talk about apples instead. As you know, there are red apples, green apples, and yellow apples. Let's imagine for a second that a small percentage of green apples are poisonous and can injure and kill people. It's difficult to distinguish the toxic green apples from the other green apples, which are perfectly peaceful, law-abiding, and so forth. Now imagine that you're the public health authority whose job it is to protect the public. If your concern is solving the problem of the small minority of toxic green apples, you would immediately do a number of things. You might devote significant resources to identifying the toxic green apples and removing them from the supermarket shelves. You might commission thorough research into how and where the toxic green apples are grown. You might crack down very, very hard on anyone who knowingly participates in growing or distributing such apples.
Right.
You might even say that while you are dealing with the problem of deaths caused by toxic green apples, bringing more green apples into the country is liable to worsen the public health crisis until suitable measures are identified which allow you to separate the bad green apples from the good ones. This is how you would act if your primary concern was the safety of the public.
That is Konstantin Kisin. He is a British political commentator, also Russian heritage, claims that he's 25% Jewish, but he's talking about how we address, and he's right, Muslim and Islamic. I have to plead guilty. I'm always wanting to stress to you there is a difference between the Muslim religion and the Islamist attitude and jihadist. You've heard me say repeatedly, not every Muslim is a jihadist, but every jihadist is a Muslim. So I guess I'm in his sights for kind of dancing around that phrasing. But I do it because I truly believe it. I don't want to condemn a people as a whole simply because of their religion. I just don't want to do it unless their religion truly is to destroy me. And yes, you're right. In the Quran, you can find those words that they want to destroy all those non-believers. And you can go to the Bible and read about God's destruction in the Old Testament and using Babylonian king and others to carry out his massacre of Jews because they would not adhere to his laws. I'm not a theologian, and my knowledge, I have to admit, is limited in these areas, but I still have an inbred belief that you have to understand just throwing a label on someone does not dissipate the issue, and you might actually be doing a disservice to that person and to the rest of their community, because it's so easy to slap a label on someone and call them out. Once again, some remarks from Kissen.
Well, what if you, as the public health authority, had spent the preceding decades claiming that all apples are the same? That to suggest that a small minority of green apples are potentially toxic is fear-mongering and greenophobic. What if you'd been openly encouraging unfiltered importation of green apples and actively resisted calls to thoroughly check whether such apples are in fact digestible for your citizens? What if your mantra for the last 20 years had been that anyone who believes there may be significant...
Well, the point being that, yeah, I'm not encouraging more importation of Muslims who want to practice Sharia law. If they want to come here and truly assimilate, that's a different story, in my view. He's making the point using apples to apples. Green apples, not all of them are toxic, but many are. So what are you doing to deal with them? And do you ban all green apples? Do you continue to deny any more green apples coming in? I would agree, unless you continue to find out and dig into where is this hate originating and this poison. You got to get to literally the root of that apple tree. Kissin's closing remarks.
What if your mantra for the last 20 years had been that anyone who believes there may be significant variations between the toxicity of different types of apples is a bigot who must be suppressed for fear of emboldening the far right? If you were in fact responsible for the fact that people were now being killed on the streets of your country by the small minority of toxic green apples, would you not do everything in your power to explain that the diversity of apples is our greatest strength? That the toxicity of green apples has nothing to do with them being green? That any doctor who suggests that the government should carefully regulate the importation of green apples specifically is a racist? The central premise of our elite consensus is that we must continue to pretend that all apples are the same, no matter how many people pay for this lie with their lives.
Yeah, and they're not all the same. Not all Muslims are the same. The Bondi Beach massacre that took place in Australia, the man that was featured stopping one of the shooters, taking the rifle away from him, was a Muslim. And he knew they were targeting Jews. But his father, speaking on behalf of him, said, my son could not stand there and watch people being slaughtered, innocent people. And there were reports of others stepping forward, an elderly couple trying to stop one of the other gunmen. And there are questions about how many gunmen were actually there. We've been told only 2, but it might be a bigger number than that. And there might be other stories of where someone stepped up to stop the shootings. But this one Muslim man stands out because he's clearly captured on video attacking the shooter, ripping the rifle from him, and then it appears that he's shooting at him. And then to make sure that he's not identified as a terrorist, he puts the rifle down and raises his hand, say, here, come here. That was a Muslim who does not fit the category that many want to say all Muslims hate Jews and want to see them dead. He did not want to see that. And he was defending them. But we also have an issue inside our government with politicians that want to ignore the illegal issue, and that being Muslim or not, we have those who are just willing to let it all happen and happen to your detriment. Tennessee Congressman Cohen.
Order is focused on street and violent crime. And Memphis has had too much, and it's gone down. It went down before the federal task force came in, but it's gone down even a little bit more. We don't know exactly what street crime is, but we know when we say we're going to go in with ICE and take out the people that committed the most serious offenses, the worst of the worst, and we mentioned crime as homicide, we mentioned rape, we mentioned pedophiles, we know who those people are. but they're arresting people simply for the offense of being in the country illegally. It's not right, but it's not necessarily something that should cause deportation when they are not committing crimes and they are contributing to the economy. So that's a concern we have.
Well, if they're in the country illegally, they are candidates for deportation. Now, I have said, and I agree, if they're not causing mayhem and chaos, they're the last I want to bother with. And many of them are self-deporting. Many have self-deported already. And yes, many of those we have rounded up have been arrested previous times, convicted even, of crimes against Americans. And you still have Democrats like Congressman Cohen want to say, well, you can't just grab up all these people because they're here illegally. The hell we can't. They violated our laws entering our nation illegally. Now, whether or not they commit a crime past that is another issue. But so many on the left, they are trying to walk the line that, well, you know, I'm with the illegals as long as they're not committing serious crimes. Well, but you want to ignore the first crime they committed, coming into the country illegally. We have politicians right now on a tightrope. There is no net for them, so they're clinging on if they slip from the rope to try to maintain, I'm doing what's best for the country, and we must stop ICE from rounding up illegals. Look, all they did was enter the country illegally. All they did. What do you think would happen? You know what would happen if you entered another country illegally. You think they're going to let you stay, even if you have the best intentions? We have seen the illegal issue weaponized against Americans and to our detriment. There's a report out that shows just how bad it's gotten in some, and that is pointing out that rent prices are up. Average Americans can't get housing because illegals are swarming into the area, taking over what facilities they can. Prices are driven down, wages, I should say, driven down. And all the left wants to do is protect them, but not to the extent that they're willing to let them into their house. See, that's a line they will not cross. They don't mind if the illegals get into your home and into your job environment and disrupt your life. And they want to commit fraud, so be it. Is there anything in that statement I just laid out as good for America? No. And yet the fraud continues, not just in the Somalian community. That's been a highlight, as we said. That is now an epicenter of fraud for everyone to view and consider, but it's not the only one. And speaking about wages, I want you to hear what Trump had to say last night about the wages, and also the Charlie Kirk assassin making a, quote, joke? I think not. Stand by.
You can connect with Larry on Twitter at Larry Connors USA.
We welcome Tom Shaw Realtors, selling, buying, leasing property all over Missouri, almost 100 years. Call Tom, 314-283-5064, shawrealtors.com. Renewal by Anderson asking, are you still battling cold drafts? Windows icing up again? Utility costs surging? You're worried about paying more every month? The truth is, you may already be paying for new windows and money lost to energy escaping your home. And here's the thing, you don't want to do this project twice. Renewal by Anderson spends every day replacing bad technology, poor installation of windows and doors that simply don't stand the test of time. But you can afford the best. America's most trusted window replacement company, Anderson. Call 877-WINDOWS or visit rbastl.com. Learn about our December savings event right now. 877-WINDOWS, rbastl.com. Renewal by Anderson. Superior products, exceptional service. I just checked the events planned at Lit Cigar Lounge, so I'm planning a lot of time there. Top-of-the-line cigars, premium whiskey. Check out litstl.com and join me. Hey, and if we get hungry, Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta, just a few doors down. We can order from the menu, be at our table within minutes. Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta in Chesterfield Valley and Lit Cigar Lounge, litstl.com.
This is News Talk STL.
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
After years of record-setting falling incomes, our policies are boosting take-home pay at a historic pace. Under Biden, real wages plummeted by $3,000. Under Trump, the typical factory worker has seen a wage increase of $1,300. For construction workers, it's $1,800. For miners, we're bringing back clean, beautiful coal. It's $3,300. And for the first time in years, wages are rising much faster than inflation.
And that was Trump last night, just spitting out fact after fact. Now, of course, the left says, oh, he has a Pinocchio nose. Not all those were facts. We were double-checking and fact-checking, and he's wrong on some of them. He might be. I didn't do the double-check. I'll leave it to the left loonies to do it. And if it's wrong, it's wrong. I will agree. But they don't like anything that says he's doing a good job. And that's what it comes down to. And they want to point out that he's totally out of touch and does not understand what's really happening in America. Well, the latest numbers out show inflation did fall in November. The Consumer Price Index rose 2.7% from a year ago. That is down from 3% in September, below the 3.1% forecast by economists. So Trump last night in his primetime speech said, very simple, we are making America great again. Inflation has stopped, wages are up, prices are down. And the left just cannot stand that kind of news. And then you have factcheck.org. This is an independent source, not tied to any of the networks, and not taking monies for donations and so forth. They point out inflation roared back during the Biden term, roared back, shrinking the value of the workers' paychecks. Consumer prices jumping 21.5%, gasoline 31%. You adjust for inflation, private sector average weekly earnings shrink 4%. Do you have any doubt about that? You lived through it. You tell me. Did you not see that happening? This was during the Biden administration. Home prices rose 37%. And the one report from the House Budget Committee chair says the cumulative inflation under Biden grew to a staggering 17.1%. That's when you take all 4 years he was in office. Trump made a remark last night that we've inherited the worst inflation in 40 years. Well, the CNN lackeys all came around. No, you're lying. That's not right. I don't know how correct that is, but I know what I see. Do you not have that ability? You can judge for yourself. Make your own decisions. Don't fall into their trap and follow them around like puppies hungry for a bite to eat. Come on. Think for yourself. You don't have to think for me. You don't have to tell me, and I'm not telling you how to think. Make your own decision. The Charlie Kirk assassin, Tyler Robinson, thought he would make some jokes about conservatives. He said conservative figures will, quote, catch a bullet one day. He was mocking the attempt of the Trump assassin, Thomas Crooks, for failing to shoot straight. Remember Butler, Pennsylvania? Trump could have died on that stage. Have you stopped to reconsider that? He could have been assassinated on that stage while running for president again. And just by the grace of God and a little movement, the bullet nicked his ear. Or maybe part of the teleprompter, whatever it was. Obviously, somebody shooting him. And we know it was not fake. We had a father or two in the audience killed and others injured. But the Charlie Kirk assassin once bragged he could hit a 400-yard shot. And he began openly adopting left-wing stances after he got into a relationship with his transgender roommate. This is according to Breitbart. That's a source. But also the Washington Post is reporting the same. The newspaper spoke with about 20 people who knew Robinson, examined hundreds of messages that he exchanged online and in private chat rooms over the last 5 years. His friends and former co-workers described him as a quiet person, mostly kept to himself, difficult to get to know. And they all say that he initially had a F both of them when it came to political parties. Didn't care for either one. But then they noticed changes after he began dating his transgender roommate, who after the 2024 election persistently complained about politics and over conservative figures. They say on more than one occasion they saw him physically cradling his transgender partner to comfort him as he sobbed over politics. Eventually, he began voicing concerns for transgender rights. That's according again to the Washington Post. And he began criticizing conservatives, accusing them of fear-mongering over transgender issues. And, of course, a lot of hate aimed at Donald Trump. Another friend told the Washington Post that when drunk, Robinson would occasionally joke about right-wing politicians and hear him say something like, "That guy's going to catch a bullet one day." And then came September 10, Charlie Kirk, fatally shot at Utah Valley University. And Robinson is accused of it. He made sure Charlie caught the bullet. This is the kind of hate division we have going on in our nation. I want to point out to you, by the way, where we're talking about transgender. The Trump administration is moving to make sure that they cut off money going to any hospital that is performing transgender surgery or providing puberty blockers. Good. That will save some children down the road. If a child is that messed up, does not know what their gender is, I do feel for them. But they don't need surgery. They don't need puberty blockers. They need counseling to help them. And many of those who've gone through the transgender effort and even the puberty blockers have complaints. I wish I hadn't done that. How many? I don't know, because a lot of them don't want to speak out. They don't want to be identified as someone that fell into that trap set by the leftists. Everybody should have a right to decide their own sex. God didn't create you. You have the ability to make your own sex, your gender. Trump's speech last night included great news for our troops if it can be done.
Proud to announce that more than 1,450,000 military service members will receive a special, we call Warrior Dividend before Christmas, a Warrior Dividend in honor of our nation's founding in 1776. We are sending every soldier $1,776.
Now, of course, many say he can't do that. Congress controls appropriations and money, so that's correct. But he puts it out there. I think he could see it through. The number 1776, Jen Psaki and MSN Now, they might be MSN Gone tomorrow, but MSN Now says that $1,700 figure is very interesting because there was a Yale study saying that there's $1,700 been taken from the American citizens over some of the Trump policies. I don't know where they got that. I didn't bother digging into it. But they're ignoring the very fact that 1776, we're coming up on our 250th anniversary. That's why that number is there. They don't want you to think beyond what they tell you. I encourage you all the time. You listen to this program, you want to refute me, you want to challenge it, by all means. I want a thinking audience, and that's what I've got, and I thank you for being here. I think in many cases, you and I probably would agree on most things. There might be others that we wouldn't. Doesn't make you bad, doesn't make me bad. It's a disagreement. Not a reason to kill anyone, is it? And we have Republican senators, according to The Hill, openly questioning Defense Secretary Hegseth's decision not to release the full video of that September 2nd follow-up strike. Remember the one that, quote, the double tap, that there were still survivors clinging to the boat when they came back and realized it did not sink, we got to hit it again, and the survivors were killed. Now, I have not seen the video. Hegseth wants to lock it away. I don't know why. I would agree with Senator John Cornyn of Texas, a senior member of the Intel Committee, said my bias would be to make it available, and I agree. He said that would be the best thing to do. It would make it available and quiet the Democrat accusations that Hegseth is trying to hide an atrocity on the high seas. Cornyn said keeping the video secret is how conspiracy theories get spun up, but he acknowledged it is Hegseth's call. Senator Lindsey Graham said the video should be made available to members of Congress. Hegseth has, and that's widely available. Some of them have seen it. That's something Hegseth has refused to do so far. But Graham said, I think that the video should be given to everyone in Congress. And he added, he said, I don't think most Americans give a damn about the video. I'd like all of us to see it. Hegseth had said just earlier this week, the video is too sensitive to be shared with the public. I don't buy that story, Secretary of War. I don't buy that story. And what I don't get, some of the video that's been released, and they state unclassified video, you now see the cargo boat, but they have a black box over those in the boat. Why? Why are you bothering to cover their identity? In the beginning, they were not bothering. I guess somebody said, oh, my God, you're showing these people, and they have family and everything. Yeah, they have family, as you do. But they're committing a heinous crime, bringing drugs in our nation to poison our populace. Secretary of State Rubio participated in one classified briefing, I should say. Missouri Senator Hawley did as well. He said, I can understand why Hegseth does not want to release the fully unedited video, but he questioned why it couldn't be redacted in parts to protect sensitive information. Hawley said, I do think that anything can be edited, that can be released. That should be helpful. But he admitted, I've not seen the videos. He said, if we can find a way to appropriately redact it, to allow the public to see it, I think that'd be great. That's the position of Senator Hawley. Our other senator making it clear that he thinks there's nothing wrong with what took place. You want to put a stop to the debate, the quickest way to do it is to go ahead and release the video. I have not seen it. I doubt you have. But I would tell you, in a military action against, and this is a military action, not a war, but a military action to put an end to these cargo cocaine boats racing across the sea, trying to get into our nation. They're terrorists. They are narco-terrorists. And if you hit the boat and it doesn't sink, the mission is sink the boat. You go back and do it again. In the meantime, Maduro is saying this naval blockade Trump wants to put around Venezuela to stop any sanctioned oil tankers, we will fight back. We will break through. I'll have our Venezuelan Navy escort these tankers. What a joke. Do you know what the Venezuelan Navy consists of? I think they've got 2 German diesel subs. Maybe not even operating, but they got one. And then they've got a mini sub of some type. They have about 25 to 30 patrol boats. They don't have anything to do war with the U.S. Navy. There would be no possibility. But they want you believe that we're going to defy Trump and we will run past them. We're going to use our Navy to escort oil tankers in direct challenge to the Trump blockade. If that happens, things could escalate. There's no doubt about it. If the Venezuelan Navy, in escorting vessels through the blockade, begin to fire upon U.S. vessels, the command might well be return fire. Do not initiate, but if fired upon, return fire. And in addition to cocaine cargo ship boats, I should say, trying to get into our nation, these tankers that are sanctioned from moving from Venezuela to other countries or bringing oil in, they will also vanish. And why we have some members of Congress saying that's wrong, we shouldn't do that. Well, they're the same ones who thought that we should shut down all oil and get rid of all of our gas vehicles and live in the cold and suffer. They want you to suffer. Well, we don't want to suffer. And we're not going to buy your story anymore. 1 year, not even a full year of Trump in office. And when he makes his statement last night about all he's accomplished, you cannot deny it. You may question the figures, so be it. But look around you. Do you not see things better and improving every day? I do. As always, I thank you for listening and reminding you of our pledge. One nation under God.